What is going on? Welcome back to another episode of the Podium Pushers podcast with Justin and Brandon. Going back to last year, we were on a streak of absolute bangers, and so when China didn't deliver on track, of course we had to get the most absurd off-track action that we have seen in like a couple of years. 3 disqualifications is absurd. Liam Lawson might be losing his seat before we even get to Japan, so on-track action might have been a little subpar this weekend, but off-track, we have got lots to talk about.
Yeah, it was kind of a crazy weekend, not for the reasons that I think we all hoped, but I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, there were some good things on track. We saw Lewis Hamilton win in red. There's stuff to talk about, and we'll get through all of that as well. But yeah, I mean, just the drama happening off track, absolutely insane. Let's start it off with our one sentence rundown. So, Brandon, what is your one sentence rundown from the Chinese Grand Prix?
My one sentence rundown is the Melbourne man gets his revenge. It was a great weekend from Oscar. He seemed to be the faster McLaren throughout the weekend. Capitalized in the sprint and obviously pulled to win in the race. So it was a great weekend from Oscar, and I think it was a pretty big statement win. So
Yeah, I mean, he was clearly the fastest McLaren driver all weekend long, in my opinion. He outperformed Lando in all of the sprint sessions, and then taking his first Grand Prix pole and winning the race looked to be the better driver all around, and of course was as cool as could be during the whole thing. Oscar Piastri just has two emotions. It's calm and calm plus a smile. So, yeah, I mean, he just went about his business and certainly inserted himself back towards the top of the championship table.
yeah, I'm excited to see how the rest of the season plays out between the two McLaren drivers because I mean when Lando's on, he is unbeatable, but when he is not, for whatever reason, he just seems to struggle at random times. So I'm excited to see how the rest of the season plays out between those two.
I know that we make fun of Lando for making all of these random small mistakes, and he made a couple this weekend that I'm sure we'll talk about as well. But we've also seen random slumps from Oscar Piastri, like his end of season slump last year once we left the continent of Europe was kind of inexplicable. And, it seems like he's turned it around again, but we're going to tracks that we know he's comfortable at. I expect him to perform well at Japan because he has since his rookie year. And then we'll have to see if he keeps going in that as well. So the McLaren dynamic and how their two drivers perform and the slumps they go through is definitely going to be something to watch this season.
Yeah, yeah, it like you said, they're almost inexplicable and they happen at seemingly random times. So who knows who will be able to take advantage when that happens.
Yeah, well, it's more entertainment for us because one, it makes us way harder to predict things, but two, it just gives us a bunch of random stuff to talk about on the podcast because who knows when Lando Norris is going to throw away more points, which he did this weekend. But moving on to my one sentence rundown is that this was the most Ferrari weekend possible. We started it off with Lewis Hamilton taking a sprint pole and winning the sprint race. Not only his first sprint win in Ferrari, his first sprint win ever, which is kind of crazy to think about. I didn't know that he had never won a sprint race until they said that, but that's kind of insane. So Lewis Hamilton winning on Saturday, looking like the clear top Ferrari driver. And then it comes to Grand Prix qualifying, and they're slow as heck. Like they don't even fight for pole at all. And then we get into the race. Charles Leclerc sends it up the inside of turn one, loses a bit of his front wing, almost takes them both out of the Grand Prix. Luckily, they survive. And then somehow, Charles is the faster driver with like half of his front wing missing and a tip of it dragging on the ground every time he brakes. It's just absurd. And so you're like, whatever, not a great race. They did the wrong strategy with Hamilton. And then it gets worse. They both get disqualified, each of them for different reasons. That is just as Ferrari as it could get. You lose your pace, you mess up the strategy, and you get disqualified with both of your drivers. I mean, that's just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, what a roller coaster. I think Lewis Hamilton has really gotten the crash course of what it's like to be a Ferrari driver in the first 2 weekends of 2025. And it's just been a roller coaster, this weekend, but also so far this season for them. And, right now, Ferrari's not positioning themselves well to be able to fight for either championship, which is surprising and much to our dismay because we predicted them to do very well in our preseason predictions. But I'm excited to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I'm like 98% sure that I flipped my prediction to McLaren, so I'm feeling great about that at the moment. But yeah, I mean it's tough, and there's still 22 races in the season. Like anything could happen. I mean, this time last year we were saying Max Verstappen is walking away with the championship, and Red Bull's going to win the constructors' championship by 400 points, and then obviously that is not what happened. You know, we had a championship fight, and Red Bull finished third in the constructors. So anything is possible. There's still so much time left in the season. And we have seen that even McLaren aren't bulletproof due to their own driver's performance, and they almost had some reliability issues with the brakes. And so, no team is bulletproof. Nothing is set in stone. Ferrari's not out of the championship fight, but at the moment, it's not looking great for him.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how the rest of the season plays out because I think that, like you said, last year this time we were predicting them to do or Red Bull to do so well, and it played out to be something entirely different. So who knows what 2025 will bring.
Yeah, I mean, this weekend must have been so bad because we've hardly talked anything about this Grand Prix. We've just been talking about the season in general and what could happen. So let's start talking about some on-track action. We had the first sprint of the year, so let's go through a quick sprint day rundown. Lewis Hamilton wins his first race for Ferrari. This is kind of the one thing that I hate about sprints is when drivers win their first race and it is a sprint. This happened with Oscar Piastri. Now it's happened with Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari. Kind of just makes it feel a little less cool, but that's my own opinion. Lando Norris threw away a handful of points. He qualified a little bit down the order because of a mistake and then put it a wheel in the gravel on lap one and lost a bunch of positions. Got 1 point, but lost ground to Max Verstappen, which was just kind of absurd that that is still happening in the year of our Lord 2025. And then speaking of Max Verstappen, he maximized the points, had a great performance, looked like he might pass Lewis at 1 point, ends up settling for a P3 after getting overtaken by Oscar. So, if anything, Max Verstappen carrying Red Bull on his back, carrying the championship fight on his back. What did you make of the sprint weekend here in China?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, Max Verstappen carrying the entire team on his back. Obviously, Liam Lawson had a horrible weekend, which is really unfortunate for him. I think that car is just so Max focused, so, you know, hard to drive. It makes me think of the interview that Alex Albon described it as like being on 100% sensitivity, like when you're playing a video game, and just that's how Max drives. And um,
Is it so max focused that this is all Liam can get out of it? Like, is it that max focused?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's just tough to watch because I think Liam is a great driver, but it's like jumping on the treadmill when it's at a 15% incline and going 12 miles an hour and trying to run. So I don't know, but yeah, great weekend for Max, honestly, able to capitalize on the sprint and the Grand Prix. And then yeah, Lewis Hamilton winning his first race. And then Lando Norris kind of was nowhere in qualifying for the sprint and then didn't seem to have the pace to make anything up in the sprint race, which, you know, I don't know what that speaks to, whether it was the McLaren pace or Lando's or the track just not being a good one to overtake at. I don't know, but it was kind of a strange Saturday.
Yeah, I think we saw just that it was difficult to overtake all weekend long. Just the dirty air. China has a lot of medium high speed corners where you're trying to follow, and the dirty air really affects the car and the tires. And so I think we saw it was confirmed in the Grand Prix that it was tough to follow and tough to make overtakes. So once Lando got a little shuffled down, it was difficult. I did expect him to pass Lance Stroll sooner than he did, but I will allow it because the track was pretty difficult to overtake on, and he still got a point. So it is what it is. We mentioned his name. Let's talk about him a little bit more. Liam Lawson. We've all heard the rumors that he could be replaced as soon as next weekend. I mean, it's just this is tough. P20 in both qualifying sessions is absolutely absurd. He made up some ground in the sprint, showed some promise, and then in the race was like nowhere. He's getting overtaken by Ollie Behrman, getting made fun of on the radio. Just an underwhelming Grand Prix. And then both Racing Bull drivers had incredible weekends. I mean, obviously it got undone by strategy, and I'll probably rant about that in a little bit because I'm still frustrated about it from last year. But for with both Racing Bull drivers looking as well as they did, Liam Lawson looking as terrible as he did, was this Liam Lawson's last weekend in Formula One?
I mean, it could be. I think if a switch is made, Liam might be just back in the Racing Bull car. I don't see them kicking Liam completely out, promoting Yuki or Isaac, and then bringing someone else into the Racing Bull team. That just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
The streets are
Uh,
saying Franco Colapinto. That's what all the
oh
random
God,
Instagram news sites are saying.
I mean, I guess that's a possibility, but I mean, that would just be crazy. I mean, that'd be great news for Jack Doohan, to be honest with you. It'd be
Yeah.
the best news he has heard in a long time, but I think that Liam's got to have a little bit more time. It seems kind of absurd to replace him this early in the season from my point of view. But I'm not Helmut Marko. I'm not Christian Horner. So I don't have a lot of insight, but it just seems a little excessive to replace him this early in the season from my point of view.
Yeah, I feel like part of this pressure to make the swap is that it's the Japanese Grand Prix coming up. Like, I feel like if we were at the calendar from 3 years ago and Japan is still like the 18th round of the season, then we wouldn't be having this conversation. Like, we clearly would give him at least 5 races. And it's just absurd the way Formula One has gone the past couple years where driver swaps are just like a normal thing. And we're like, if a driver doesn't perform in 5 races, they're out. It's like Liam Lawson is still a rookie. He's done like 12 races in the sport. I feel like we have to give him some time. Yes, these performances are terrible, but he lost some time in testing. He lost a practice session in Australia. There was only one practice session here because it was a sprint weekend. He's new to these tracks, he's new to the car. Like Japan, if he stinks in Japan, which he lived at while he did Super Formula and did well there, if he performs terribly here, maybe it is time to think about a swap down the road or even soon because then you think something fundamentally is wrong with the pairing of him and that car. But 2 races into the season, it just seems kind of harsh and a little too quick for me because I feel like Yuki Tsunoda is kind of destined for the same fate.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And I think it was the craziest thing about it was like immediately yesterday after the race, it was like rumors are at full bore 100%. Like I am it very, very strong rumors in terms of how many, news outlets are reporting this on Instagram and TikTok and all this stuff. So it's like, are we really gonna move that quickly? Like, I mean, obviously I haven't seen anything credible from Red Bull to say that, Liam's been replaced and or going to be replaced, but just crazy to me how quickly those rumors came on.
Yeah, I've learned more and more the past couple years to just take every single speculation I see online, these news accounts, just with the smallest grain of salt. So we can talk about them, we can laugh about them, but until something official is out, I'm not buying it. And Yuki Tsunoda is a great driver. Like I feel like he has taken another step forward this year. He's still no Max Verstappen. So if Yuki Tsunoda is finishing 11th instead of 15th, like is that better? Is that worth it? Like, did we just ruin 2 drivers' careers just so we could finish on the fringes of the points instead of getting knocked out in Q1? Like, I don't know if that's worth it.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I think there's something fundamentally wrong with the car that Red Bull maybe doesn't understand. And I think maybe their efforts would be better focused in trying to understand and figure out, okay, what are the issues with the car? How can we understand it better? Rather than, all right, let's figure out how to put more pressure on Liam. Let's figure out how to, you know, make him perform better. Obviously, that's something important to focus on too. But it's like for Liam Lawson, I can't imagine the roller coaster of emotions that the last year and a half has been in his life. It's crazy.
He's looked like he's aged like 10 years in the last 2 Grand Prix weekends. I feel horrible for him. I know he's got to be under a lot of stress. I know we just talked about how this is a long season. In my mind, if you're Red Bull, write it off. 2025 is over. You're not winning the Constructors' Championship. You're gonna finish P4. That's just the way it is. Max Verstappen could finish P4 on his own. There's no point in just absolutely obliterating your junior driver program for the sake of 2025. Like, start looking towards next year. You know, you have a new chance in the new regulations. You can reset your driver lineup for next year. You want to keep Max happy because the rumors are always swirling of him to Mercedes or Aston Martin. So I think 2025, kind of a loss. Cut your losses. Don't screw up anybody else's career. Maybe play it safe on your driver lineup a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Zach Brown in an interview last week said that he believes Max Verstappen is going to be driving for Mercedes in 2026, which is crazy thing for me to hear. I don't think that's going to happen personally, but I mean, Zach Brown is obviously somebody pretty well connected. He's the CEO of McLaren Racing, and they're the most successful team so far this season.
He's also someone that likes to mess with Christian Horner a little bit, so I
He
don't know. I
certainly
don't know
he
how much
certainly
truth is
does.
in that.
Zach Brown's confidence has grown in the last 5 years immensely, and it's been a joyous ride to watch. Um, but he's also probably the most successful American in Formula One right now. So go America.
Didn't
That's
have to pull on the heartstrings for Logan Sargent right there. Hope he's doing all right out there. Let's talk a little bit about something a little bit happier. A driver whose career is looking up, Oscar Piastri. Is Oscar Piastri in the championship fight solidly for 2025? Like we said, number one McLaren driver all weekend long. Lando was making some mistakes. Oscar seemed to be maximizing as much as he could. First Grand Prix pole, and that was kind of the thing that he was missing. He didn't really outqualify Lando. He has already done it this year, takes a pole position. Now he's only 10 points out of the championship lead. Still early days, 22 rounds left. Oscar Piastri, yes or no, championship contender?
absolutely. I think, he's only 10 points off right now. And if they continue to take points off of each other, I think not only is Oscar in the race, but you've got George Russell, who's been incredibly consistent over the first 2 weekends, and Max Verstappen, of course, who's also up there. Those two drivers are very consistent. And if Lando and Oscar can continue to be consistent, then it's going to be a four-horse race for this championship, which is so amazing to say. And I think that Oscar is absolutely in the championship. They've got a fast car. He's a fast driver who I think has stepped up his qualifying significantly so far this season, and that will certainly help.
Yeah, he was super close to Lando in Melbourne too. Like it wasn't a giant gap. So he is on Lando's pace in qualifying now. So we'll have to see if that trend continues. And I know you said four-horse race, but I still don't want to count out the Ferrari drivers. One DNF for those drivers and Ferrari are right back in the mix. So we could be looking at six. I know he's not on the sheet, but George Russell, super consistent this year. I mean, I don't want to discount that at all. Two P3s in a row. He has really been maximizing that Mercedes. So he's still there. And Max Verstappen's going to do what Max Verstappen's going to do. So the championship, it could be pretty interesting this year. I know we're saying McLaren are the dominant car and they should walk away with it, but I wouldn't be so confident.
Yeah, I mean, I think McLaren is definitely going to walk away with the Constructors' Championship. They've already opened up a pretty big gap um, through 2 races, but I think the Drivers' Championship will be very, very close.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And it's just because they have two number one drivers, Lando and Oscar, are going to be taking points off of each other, and then one slip up from them, and you've got that list of consistent drivers behind them, just staying in the mix, lurking in the shadows. So I do agree with you. I think they should walk away with the constructors, but the drivers could be a completely different story. Okay, back to something a little bit negative here, because I'm going to rant about this. Freaking Racing Bulls. They make me so mad. They are like the fastest car in the midfield right now, and they're P9. Sauber's ahead of them. They should be up there with Williams and Ferrari in P4 because they have looked like the fastest midfield car 2 weekends in a row. 2 weekends in a row, they've thrown it away because of strategy errors. The same thing was happening all the time last year to Daniel and Yuki, where they're running like P7 on track, and then it gets to the checkered flag, and they're like P14 and P16, and I'm like, what the heck happened? And so I don't understand it. I don't get why their strategies are so bad. I know they're a B team, yada yada, whatever. But come on, you're a Formula One team. You should have one of the 10 best strategists in the world. What are we doing?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it was obviously the pit strategy this weekend, but yeah, they were both running in the points at one time, looking at a potential double points finish, and then all of a sudden, Yuki did good enough to. He has what, 3 points on the season that he got
The
all
sprint.
this
Yeah.
weekend.
Yeah.
So it's just really unfortunate because that car has looked so good, especially in qualifying pace. They've qualified very well, all 3 qualifying sessions, and they just can't seem to get the points, which they're going to need because this is going to be a tight battle in the midfield as well.
Yeah, I know. And like we just saw Haas get a P5 with Esteban Ocon after all the disqualifications. That should have been Yuki Tsunoda. And I know he had the front wing failure, but you could say like, would that have he was out there running on his own. And so if he does the one stop, is he in the turbulent air of another car that breaks his front wing going down the backstretch? Probably not. And so like you can't just afford as a team to give away that massive haul of points to another midfield team that you want to finish ahead of. And so it's just absurd. And honestly, I think what makes me so mad about this is that I probably think deep down that Daniel Ricciardo lost a chance at going back to that Red Bull seat because V-carb threw away so many points finishes for him in the pits. And so maybe that's why I'm harboring some bitterness. But also, I shouldn't be sitting here as a Formula One fan being like, I could probably do better. And I've never done a strategist before in my life. So, it's like, it's just kind of unacceptable from Racing Bulls at this point.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree with you. I think Daniel had a lot of chances last year to get some points that were tossed by strategy decisions and poor calls, but hopefully they can turn things around. Hopefully Isaac Hadjar and Liam and not Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda aren't victim of that for too much longer, but we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, maybe that's why Yuki wants to go to Red Bull. He's like, I know this could end my career, but I simply cannot put up with another weekend of this horrible strategy. Like, get me out of here. Maybe that's why he really wants to leave.
I mean, if I was Yuki, maybe those are thoughts that I would be having right now.
Yeah, maybe so. Let's talk about our predictions. This will put a smile on your face. You're currently leading the prediction battle from 4 points to you, 3 points to me. So you've got one up on me. I thought I was cooking some good predictions. Unfortunately, I did not do too well. Podium pusher of the weekend, I went with Fernando Alonso, and he completed about 5 racing laps before he had to DNF because of a brake failure. So that's a no for me.
Yeah, and I had Carlos Sainz, also a no. It was an up and down weekend for Carlos, but unfortunately, I don't think it was enough to get podium pusher of the week.
Yeah, he scored his first points with Williams because of a Ferrari DSQ, which is just poetic in my mind. But he was pretty far off Alex Albon all weekend long, like qualifying P15, and then would have been out of the points for the DSQ when Alex was scoring multiple points this weekend. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately a fairly okay weekend for Carlos. I think better weekends are ahead, but can't give him podium pusher of the weekend this weekend. Back mark of the weekend, I went for Nico Hulkenberg. And I feel great about this one. He was out qualified by Gabriel Bortoleto in sprint qualifying, finished behind him in the sprint, and then qualified P12 for the race. Yippee, that's great. And then somehow finishes last car on the road and behind Gabriel Bortoleto again. So Nico Hulkenberg, back marker of the weekend. Yes.
Yeah, totally agree with that. It was kind of a strange weekend from Nico as well. I went with Isaac Hadjar, and I think that one's probably a no. Isaac did very well in qualifying. Obviously, there was the strategy in the race that we just talked about that kind of ruined his race. But I think Isaac had a decent weekend, and he's been one of the better rookies so far this season, and one of the better rookies this weekend as well. So I don't think I can get that one either.
Yeah, I think he had the perfect weekend that he needed to have. I know it didn't end in points, but to bounce back after bending it on the formation lap in Australia, to out qualify Yuki, to be racing right behind him all weekend long, I think it was the perfect weekend that he needed. So props to Isaac Hadjar. Sprint pole, I went for Max Verstappen, which was incorrect.
And I went with Lando Norris, which was also incorrect.
Sprint winner, I went with Lando Norris, incorrect.
Yeah, as did I, also incorrect.
Yeah, well, this is where things start to look up for you. So you'll at least get to be happy now. Pole, I went with Lando Norris again, which was incorrect.
And I went with Oscar Piastri, which was correct.
P3, Max Verstappen, incorrect.
P3, Max Verstappen, also incorrect.
After we said Max Verstappen last week, I made a joke about how we should have put George Russell, but we just don't know where the Mercedes is. And at that point, I probably absolutely guaranteed a George Russell P3. So that one's on me. Oscar Piastri was my P2 driver, which was incorrect.
I had Lando Norris in P2, which was correct.
And I had Lando Norris in P1, which was incorrect.
And I had Oscar Piastri in P1, which was correct. So
Yeah, this is unbelievable that I went with Lando Norris all the way down after he had a great weekend in Australia, and then he lets me down. And then so I'm going to go away from it. And as soon as I start predicting someone else, Lando Norris is going to take all the polls and win everything, and it's going to be horrible. But at least you get to celebrate now and get the points. Our one push and prediction, I said that each team leaves the weekend with at least 1 point, which was incorrect. Haas and RB did their job for me, but freaking Alpine decided to be slow as heck and get a car disqualified as well. We didn't even talk about Pierre Gasly getting disqualified, but rest in peace him. He didn't score any points anyways. So Alpine really let me down on that one. No point for me.
yeah, it was very close. I mean, Pierre crossed the line in P11 before his disqualification.
Dude, if
but
he wasn't disqualified from P11, I would be sitting here arguing for half a point right now. But since he got DSQ'd, there's nothing I can do about that.
yeah, fair enough. Um, And my one push and prediction was that Ferrari scores at least 25 points across the weekend. That was looking fantastic until both of their drivers got disqualified in the race. So I do not get that one, unfortunately.
That is the most Ferrari way for you to lose that prediction. I mean, it was looking solid after the sprint. I said there's no way this doesn't come true. And then, well, the old DSQ happened, so nothing you can do there with that one. The fans at Envy Rudy says McLaren 1-2 with Max third. So close, but no point there. At Ethan.Smealan says Charles, Max, and Lando finished P1, 2, and 3. That is incorrect. And at Daniel_Marsh_ says Yuki podium finish. Probably would have been on for like a P5 had the strategy not been mixed up, but the podium was never on. So unfortunately, no points from the fans either.
Yeah, those were great predictions from the fans, but hopefully next week they'll get some more right.
Yeah, well, hopefully I will too, because I'm now losing 7-4. This is unbelievable. You're stretching the lead early on. I got to do some catching up. But that is all we've got for the Chinese Grand Prix. As always, thank you for watching or listening to another episode of the Podium Pushers podcast. Before we get out of here, Brandon, what are your parting podium thoughts?
Parting thoughts. It was a good weekend in China, and I'm excited for Japan. Suzuka is a fantastic circuit. Got a home driver in Yuki Tsunoda who will be racing there potentially in a Red Bull car if all these rumors come true. I mean, who's to say? But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing some more great racing.
Yeah, I'm sad that we have a weekend off. You know, we were treated to a doubleheader to start the year. Unfortunately, we have to wait a full week before we get to Japan. But that just means there's more time for like 7 driver swaps on the grid to happen. So who knows what the grid could look like when we show up to Japan. Thank you for watching or listening to our recap of the Chinese Grand Prix. We appreciate each and every one of you who decide to let us talk to you about Formula One. before you go, be sure to like, follow, subscribe, do all of the things. We will see you next week to predict the Japanese Grand Prix. Until then, have a great day and God bless.
See you.